Thank you so much for joining. This has been a few weeks in the making, and it's been a lot of fun. Nicola, thank you for actually, letting me jump on board and just help you celebrate launching this.
Thank you for making a
and
board to jump on.
Yeah, and guys, everybody, thank you for coming. I don't think I quite introduced myself. I'm Claire. I'm currently in Ladysmith, South Africa, and I generally read pretty much anything. But some of my go-to genres are fantasy, speculative fiction, action. I absolutely love action. It's one of the things I really love. But one of the things I really look for in a story is either a story that asks hard questions, or stories that illustrate a bigger truth. And Nicola gave me the opportunity to read Leoshine, the first book. And I really feel that it definitely does explore and illustrate a bigger truth. So, Nicola, just tell us a bit about yourself, like where you grew up and things like that.
I didn't grow up. Still waiting for that to happen. I'm very short. I was born in South Africa. Then we moved to England, and then we moved to South Africa, and then we landed in Toronto, Canada. So that's why I call myself a third culture kid, because I grew up in a culture that my parents didn't grow up in. And so I was creating a third culture out of what I was exposed to in all different directions.
Wow, that's really, really cool. So how did you get into writing?
I did not learn how to read or write until I was in grade 4, because my schooling was interrupted by all the moves hither and yon, back and forth. And so I did more story composing in my head. I had a whole bunch of people living in my head. And B will tell you that I told stories. And then when I did learn how to read, it was a wonderful thing. And I learned that other people had stories in their head. And it seemed natural to write them down. And I began writing Leoshine about 20 years ago. 23. All the numbers keep adding up.
So tell us a bit more about that, about the story behind Leoshine, and
well, I had a dream about a man riding his horse, helter-skelter. He was so excited and happy. He was riding as fast as he could, and he had other riders riding beside him, and they were all heading somewhere very exciting. And I woke up from this dream, and I had a burning need to explain why the man was so happy. He was happy because his mother was landing on the same planet as he was. So you will find this scene in Leoshine Princess Oracle. I don't actually know where the girl came from. There was this girl, and she was given to this man as a bed warmer, as a gift, as a slave. And he did not want to do anything like that with her, but he had a mission for her. He had a job for her to do, to explain his culture to other people, or even to her own culture. And that's how it landed up. He dresses her up because culture is made out of clothes and language and food. So he dresses her up, he feeds her, he makes her do the things in his culture, tries to make her a meeting point between her culture and his culture. And then her brother comes along and decides that this is all wrong and she should only be dressed up the way he thinks she should be dressed up. And she should only be eating the food that he creates an entirely different culture around her as well. So she's the meeting place of everybody's idea of what culture should be.
So one of the things I really enjoyed reading Leoshine was how normally stories involving like an invasion or a new culture coming in, we get the story up until the invasion takes place and then it ends. But you've kind of flipped that around and almost started with the invasion and then brought in the conflict that comes after that conflict between the cultures. Yeah, which is just, I really, really enjoyed that, just getting to see that from a new angle. I have to ask, which was your favorite character to write?
Yeah, Resham was. Resham is probably more like me than anybody. But of course, there's parts of me in every character. But the tension, because he is Mixolydian. He was kidnapped as a child from Mixolydia, taken to Aeolia, indoctrinated into their culture. Like, he was forced into becoming Aeolian, and he went with it. After a while, he just became completely Aeolian, so that Leoshine cannot tell that he is Mixolydian when she first meets him. And then he comes to Mixolydia with the invasion, and all of a sudden Mixolydia starts talking to him and saying, "You're one of us, you're not one of them." And he has this fight inside him. Well, who am I? What part am I playing? And that's how I am too, with South Africa and with Canada, and also with a bit of England thrown in there. I've got all these different loyalties and thoughts, and this culture doesn't understand me because they see this in me. This culture doesn't understand me because they see this in me. It's the same way with Resham. So he's my favorite.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So what is the road to actually publishing? Like, this is now the moment you've been working towards for the past like 20 years. What does that road look like?
Oh, well, lots of writing and rewriting. I'm a quilter. There's people who lay out everything that's supposed to happen in the story, and then they start writing. And then there's people who put their pen to paper, and whatever happens, happens. And I do a little bit of that, but my scenes don't occur to me one after the other. I'll have a scene over here and a scene over here. They happen at different times, and I have to put them together somehow. So I have to write everything that happens in between, and then something else happens, and that has to fit in here. So lots of revising. I wrote first of all on paper, then I got a laptop. What a revelation that was. I could take it wherever my kid was, doing soccer, doing a school. If I had to wait for her to pick her up at school, I could be typing on my laptop. I've had an editor. She did a bit of work for free because she was wanting to use me for her portfolio. So she steered me well in the right direction. But when it finally came to actually handing it over, she couldn't do it. And that's when I came to Katie. And I was, what am I going to do? I need an editor. And so she, through her writing contacts, put me in touch with Colleen. And I had a conversation with Colleen during an epic thunderstorm. I'll never forget the thunderstorm. And it caught, the insurance company marks this on their calendar, their history, because it was the worst thunderstorm for hail in Calgary's history. Meanwhile, Colleen and I are on the phone, and I'm talking about my story and all this, and I finally end up saying, "So would you edit my story?" And she paused, and I'm thinking, oh no, she doesn't want to hear it. She says, "I'll find an editor for your story. I want to publish your stories." Oh, what a surprise, what a delight. Thank you, Colleen, for stepping in there and carrying it to this point. I've been with Colleen since August last year. And we've been through, Marcia has edited it and found out that perhaps book 1 needed to be chopped in half. So now book 1 is book 1 and book 2. And there's going to be about 6 books in the series before Leoshine actually, does her job. That Avram, well, I won't give it away. She does the job. Let's just say that.
I'm glad you said that, because that ending was such a cliffhanger. I mean, seriously, there needs to be a sequel. So I'm glad there is one. Good. Okay, so what were some highlights? What were just some high moments for you in writing Leoshine?
Oh, the highlights are the people that I meet. You people here, being part of Serotonin and the uh, office hours. 3 times a week, the authors get together and we share our journeys. We help each other. We do stuff. It's really exciting. And then being part of ChristianWriters.com, the forum. That's about 5 years, 6 years I've done that. And that's where I met Claire and Sheila. And there are all kinds of really exciting people there who are writing wonderful things. I get to share their journeys. So that's the highlight. That's the one thing. I also had the ATB booster thing earlier in the year in February. We were doing a crowdfunding, and many of you people helped with the crowdfunding. That was a highlight for sure. That allowed me to hire Anna Pedersen for the cover art, which is just very beautiful. The cover is stunning. Those are the highlights that I can think of right now.
Okay, one last question. When does Leoshine Princess Oracle, when's the due date?
When does she come into your hands?
Arrive?
Oh, that's Colleen can answer that question better than I can. Sometime in June, I expect.
Yes, that's the goal. Sometime in June.
We're going to have Leoshine into your hands as soon as possible, probably in the middle of June.
That's awesome. Nicola, yeah, thank you for letting me interview you. It was fun. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. I think this would be a good place to play that. This is the last scene of book 1 that Claire was referring to as a real cliffhanger.
Ileana touched his lips, warning him not to dishonor himself with slander, even if it sounded like truth at the moment. His soul writhed at her rebuke. The question pounded with his heart, as it had with Paulos's hoofbeats. How could she? How could she? Ileana tilted her head to one side. My son, you don't know how she went. Do not judge her until you know that, and then do not judge her at all. Be content that you have always done honorably by her and are blameless in your master's eyes. You have represented your master with integrity. She kept her head tilted as she held his clenched jaw in the palm of her hand. Leoshine is a woman worthy of you. He sprang to his feet. Spots obscured the room when his shin collided with the short-legged table in the middle of the room. The radius of his steps opened to include the sofa opposite his mother. Blood smeared his fingers from the raw skin above his eye. The intolerable pain in his chest constricted his breath, and he pulled at the fabric of his blouse. Ileana settled into her chair. My poor quaint son, you think this is your secret? Do you remember how you longed for your father when he left us? You thought he could do no wrong. You worshipped him. Then he returned, and you found that he was a man full of anger and bitterness, and your heart turned against him. You have isolated that girl so that her family has grown in virtue and stature. Her brother would be a hero from her babyhood. If he came to offer her his company, she would not think twice. He could tell her any lie. He could offer her the humblest path, and she would not hesitate to take it. Can you trust her to stay and watch your enemy? Do you believe in her intelligence and wisdom as much as you want her to believe in yours? Surely she will see the truth and she will really give her heart to you instead of your wresting it from her. You set father free. It nearly killed you. Ileana straightened in her chair. He nearly killed me. Avram screamed and paced faster. Both hands squeezed his blazing purple temples. His breath snorted through flared nostrils. Ileana murmured in a lilting voice, "You are angry." "Yes!" he screamed. "You want to kill." All motion ceased. "No!" Cast himself at her feet. Father killed in his anger. In her tone, she warned him that he reminded her of that cruelty and insensitivity to life. No, if he killed anything in his anger, he would be killing her and all she had taught him. He leaped up, crossed the room, and stared at the wall. He paced behind her sofa and held his breath until her voice curled in his ear. By increments, he sank to his knees and placed his head in her lap. Avram felt his mother soften. Her song reached his heart. Solemn stillness followed. Calm settled, and neither moved to break it. Avram subsided and sent his spirit out. He knew Ileana's was ahead, already convening with Iokavad. Quaint, she had called him. Ileana curled his hair around her fingers. She has distracted you from your first purpose. Your master sent you to claim this kingdom in his name. No, don't say that. You don't know how many times I have cried out, "This is too much for me." Avram swallowed hard. I would have broken under the yoke if there hadn't been a little face in the corner reminding me, urging me toward the redemption of her people. She is a gift from my master, part of the yoke. Now she is gone, and I'd rather have my heart torn from my chest. Ileana's tears splashed on his hand. His soaked her skirt. He rose again and paced for another long stretch. He finally looked up, frowning. So, to battle? Throw yourself into it. She's waiting for you on the other side.
There's a cliffhanger for you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you for putting it together.
The picture that I was drawing was food. You know, the food comes in the little bits, and pick bite-sized pieces, and then the chair. I hope you recognize it was a chair, and it's very highly carved. Mm-hmm. I got that from my dad. My dad carves things.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. This was really fun, and Nicola, I wish you well, and I look forward to Leoshine coming in.